The Lost Signals looks at
This
horror films
is God.
that were the early roles of famous actors.
You've been
And another Halloween sequel.
I think Michael is under the influence of an evil rune.
With in-depth analysis,
Trite, rhetorical, cliched, inane.
adult content,
Sniff it or he shoots you.
adult language,
He played pogo on his lawn.
and spoilers.
My birth cry will be the sound of every phone on this planet ringing in unison.
Join us.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the finale of our 6th annual MOTS-O-Ween celebration,
MOTS-O-Ween marathon,
where
baby.
we take a look into horror films of all types. This year's theme was looking at basically famous actors' first roles in films, but specifically horror, because that happens quite often.
We're very early roles.
Yes.
In some cases.
That's true, but we're looking for the introducing this person, especially on re-releases. And saying that, we're looking at Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers, introducing
And
starring Paul S. Rudd.
Paul Stephen Rudd, I believe he
Yes,
went by in this
yes.
movie.
I am Jonathan Ian Manser, here with Christopher Morgan,
Hello.
Stephen Ramosi,
Hello.
and Scott Thurlow.
And Michael Myers is my business.
All right, Chris, do you have a funny log line for us?
Michael Myers, born under a bad sign, Haddonfield. If they didn't have bud luck, they wouldn't have any luck at all. Let's
Very nice.
Well, I'm going to go into plot here, but also a little bit of backstory, because this is not only a horror movie in film, but it's a horror movie in production.
The
as
making
well.
of this film.
The Halloween franchise had been moved over to Dimension Films, which means a Weinstein production, with all of the Weinsteinisms. They got their grubby hands all over this. But from what I understand, this was a phenomenal script created by a person who loved the Halloween series, who was trying to tie all of the loose ends together, turned into a mediocre film, then Weinstein's turned it into a terrible film. We are not only looking at Halloween 6, but we're looking at the unrated producer's cut.
Which is why they agreed by like the fan cult fan base that it's the superior version.
Yes, I think so too, because I actually saw this the first time. I rented it from Blockbuster, if that dates me at all.
Right on, man.
Yeah. So the plot: Michael's back, Haddonfield. It's been 6 years since the events of Halloween 5. Haddonfield decides to throw Halloween again, and Michael returns, because it turns out that it's fated by the stars that he returns every 6 years.
He's
or
born
whatever.
under a bad sign.
And a new family is stalked. Paul Rudd returns as the kid from the first film, who has become
The one that Laurie was babysitting.
Yeah,
I think, right?
a conspiracy theorist.
Tommy Doyle.
Tommy Doyle. Who's obsessed with Michael Myers. Loomis is back, who is a conspiracy theorist obsessed with Michael Myers. And it's almost unfolding as all of these forces come together for there's the Thorn cult controlling Michael Myers. There's the victims. There's Loomis and Danny Boyle, all converging to help save the day and stop Michael forever. But of course not, because there's 10 sequels left to go through. Overall, I actually think that in an attempt to acknowledge all of the films that came before, which added some really absurd things. The Man in Black was not introduced here, it was introduced in the last film. The Thorn cult was introduced in the last film.
Well, like it's like a stinger almost.
Yeah,
like
but they're attempting here to bring everything back. And in the theatrical cut, they knocked out a bunch of Donald Pleasance. They knocked out all of John Carpenter's music.
Terrible move. these are
where
terrible
Donald Pleasance and John Carver's music is what Halloween is about.
Yeah.
Without that, it's nothing.
And I think that this actually works on some levels as a manic attempt to bring everything together and tie up all the loose ends. And it fails at certain extents because it's silly at certain points, but it's
Certainly.
enjoyable.
It's trying its damnedest to.
Yeah, you can tell
keep all that
some
shit.
love went into it.
Yeah.
Versus I think what the theatrical cut is just and there's no love there, it's just making money.
Garbage
But
film.
you can tell some people appreciated what was going on here, and I'm going to give it credit for that. Again, it's far more watchable than 4 and 5 are. So I'm going to give it a 2 for plot for this.
I'm mostly following suit. Mark me as like an okay, solid enough 2. Yeah, because I agree. It given like the troubled nature of it and all the meddling and everything you just explained. Like if you didn't know that as a backstory, but as is, or at least particularly the unrated producer's cut, it does work more than it doesn't, and I'm giving it credit. And especially like just to add on, or also reiterate that it's definitely more watchable than 4 or 5, and I had a better time with this one too.
Yeah.
Dried paint is more interesting to watch than Halloween's 4 or 5. Paint drying is more fun. I agree with you. It's getting a 2. I thought it was enjoyable. There was a lot of heart. Whoever was given this was given was given pieces of sow's ears and put together as good of a movie as was possible. I mean, and I'm saying that because the last 2, I mean, decidedly 5 was one of the worst movies I've probably ever seen. It was empirically, it to this day, I think it has the lowest MOTS score. I think we gave it a 1.5.
Thank you, Chris. We definitely empirically gave it the lowest score of any review we've ever done. So yeah.
I quite enjoyed this. For all of its faults, for any silliness in there, I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I do have to bring up when Donald Pleasance was introduced and he doesn't have a bad makeup job. It's just like plastic surgery. I'm like, got it right off the table.
Yeah, good.
Maybe
Let's get rid of this.
Producers are like, enough of this bullshit. Let's plastic surgery. Hey, you gotta. I liked it.
I'm gonna probably come in on a 2 as well. It's just a solid horror plot based on what they were given from the previous movies. Like it actually is really well done considering the nonsense that 4 and 5 like gave them to work with. And like,
angle.
I like how they kind of tied it all together. Like the way that they did the cult was like pretty well done, and like they kept it fairly like covered up, or like they it made sense why they would have never known about them beforehand and things like that. So I think they did a fine job. It's not going to be good enough for a 3, but I think that this movie does a pretty good, especially the producer's cut. I hear that this is the only one I've ever seen. So like I hear that the other theatrical cut is not as good in terms they throw out a lot of things that make the plot make sense and stuff like that. But in terms of the sorry, go ahead.
They wanted to cut out the Thorn cult as much as possible. So like they basically cut up all the setting up scenes between Wynn being revealed as the head of the cult. So it just seems like this guy we saw once turns out to be the head of the cult. And it's like, oh, that doesn't make any sense. Well, it does if you watch the producer's cut, which sprinkles him throughout.
Right, exactly. I think it's well done in that. Hold on. So I think it's well done in that regard. And I just enjoyed the film. I think it plot wise does its job, and then in certain parts and then some, and in certain other parts, you're right, it's like silly as hell, and like there are certainly things that they could have done a little bit differently. But overall, I was pretty happy with it, so I'm gonna give it 2.
I did want to say one thing, that Halloween 4 was the quintessential direct to DVD, even though it got a theatrical release, and I did see it in the theater, unfortunately. Fortunately, it was in a theater where you could actually smoke. So my buddies and I were up there's like,
awesome.
But this film is a quintessential 90s horror film theatrical release. Yes, it with the producer's cuts probably better than you would have seen in the theaters. But this is so quintessential 90s.
Still that, yeah. Good
I mean, and I mean that in the most endearing way. Because in the 90s, I was living by myself. Tuesdays were my night, and all the theaters by me had like discount Tuesday nights. So I saw like Night Flyer, and I saw Dark City. Sure. I missed this one, but I enjoyed the fucking hell that it was a snapshot in time. So it's gonna get
it's so 90s. Well. To quote something from outside, it's so 90s it hurts. Like, yeah. Sure.
It's collecting pogs. Anyway, Chris, on to themes with you.
Nice.
We don't decide our fates. The stars decide our fates.
I guess.
Yeah, no, I just rewatched Halloween 3 yesterday, so I had a chuckle because both of them have this astrological element to it. Themes, I really don't know where to land on this because there's the meta theme and I think that we've already, discussed where you take something you love and you try to honor it as best you can. Which again, this film's got a lot of fucking heart. But internally, I'm really not sure where to land on it because it is kind of a mess. They did the best they could, but I mean, the only thing I could think of is, something about the ghosts of your past always haunting you. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I'm going to throw it to you guys because like the meta themes, I think we'd give a 1-2. Internally, I'm not really sure there's anything to really hang your hat on.
It's nice that the meta theme thing is there, but I'm going to focus on internally, like the actual events and so forth of the film. And we might have mentioned this, and I wish I knew. I'm fairly certain we gave the last 2 or so 0 themes anyways. Like, you can't go home again. I know you love that theme, E. Like, just that idea.
What, Michael Myers can't go home again?
But like it does, like that's just my jokey thing to throw out to you. I'm giving this a 0. They're not like just nothing there, or like not enough there. Whatever is there like limps along, and the credit that we just gave to plot, I think, is what I'm taking away from here. And I'll also give credit to other questions. But I mean, what characters learned anything? Like, it just like you said, Chris, happenstance. Oh, you're born under a bad sign, so fuck you. Like, bad shit's gonna happen to you. Like, okay, what does that say? Like, that's what my score is gonna be, unless you guys have some crazy argument to convince me otherwise. So.
Want to get an astrological discussion?
No, I don't. But go for it. Otherwise,
so it's an interesting question. I think you're probably right. I don't think there's a ton there in terms of like a deeper theme or a deeper thing to this. Maybe Ian will school us all in terms of that, but there's always there's always that, kind of the problem I have with, as much as it's like kind of fun in this movie, the cult coming in and being the big driver of like what Michael Myers has always been, is like it takes away from his mythos and creates a new one that he's not in control of.
That's like a lesser.
But like in all the other movies, Michael Myers, other than the third one, obviously, Michael Myers is like in control of his own fate and like his own actions and things like that. Yeah. And in this movie, they kind of take that away from him. So I get why they did it, and I actually think it works pretty well. But it almost takes away the agency that Michael Myers had in the other movies, which is an interesting. I wouldn't call it a theme per se, but like it's a part of the themes, I think, and not a great one. Like in terms of the plot, I think it works well. In terms of the themes, I don't think it does. Yeah. But anyway, E, what were you gonna say?
First of all, I'm going to be serious for a second and say that this is a course correction film. Specifically, the producer, Mustafa Akkad or something. But he was very disappointed with the fifth one and wanted to kind of reinvent the series. So they're tying up all loose ends. Instead of just ignoring that the other films existed, it was a valiant attempt to
at least
bring closure to all of this so they can move onwards. And that was the intent of this. So, but I'm going to try my best here. So you're right about that. It does strip the agency of Michael Myers. But if we look into the cult, I'm going to bring up Cabin in the Woods for a second. This is a cult that is at least believes that there's a necessary supernatural forces. In fact, that the ruins exist. Sure. They do have supernatural properties. So there's perhaps not to the directness of Cabin in the Woods, but there is proof that there is some validity behind their belief system, and that Wynn thinks that he needs to sacrifice a family in order to preserve this greater sanctity of the community. I don't know why Haddonfield needs to be preserved, but perhaps. So yeah, you're right. Michael Myers becomes a pawn in the situation, but then it shifts the focus to Loomis. Loomis, over the entire course of the thing, it's about his shift from being a scientific mind to taking over as the leader of the cult. That it is now his duty to follow in Wynn's footsteps, and partly it's his slow realization that the supernatural exists. Mm-hmm. He believes Michael Myers is a man with agency initially, that then he believes he's an evil. Now he knows that it's something even beyond that, and Paul Rudd's character as well is almost, I would say, would take over the Loomis role, with Loomis taking on the villain, the leader, but not being a villain because he's doing it for a purpose,
in service of a greater.
I think if they wanted to go that way, they could have. They just didn't go far enough. They want the scary, the awesome reveal at the end where the tattoo goes on Loomis and he has the amazing scream.
Yeah.
But that's an interesting arc for Loomis over the course of the entire series, while at the sacrifice of Michael. But again, I don't think it was effective.
I mean, that's a valiant angle to interpretation, if you will. And yeah, you're right. If they lean just a bit more, maybe I could have been convinced. And so it's going to be a soft zero still. But yeah, you're right. You're right, Steve-O. It strips Michael of a lot of his agency that was already part of his earlier established legend, if you will. Mm-hmm. So it changes the course of it. And as you said, one of you, that this whole movie was sort of a course correction to a degree. I still don't think it's not enough. Noble effort, and they tried their best to tie all this shit to fucking Barthian braided, I guess, if you will, all together. It just doesn't quite get there. But I give them credit on the effort, but not credit on the actual scale here.
Yeah.
Again, if we were going to do a meta theme on this, you'd get one without question. Internally, no.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Steve-O, yeah, I'm gonna hop on and say that was an excellent point you made about the agency and Michael Myers.
So that's zeros all around. All right, before we move on to talking about Michael Myers, or Wynn as the antagonist of this, we're going to, for the first time ever, give a shout out to a podcast we're friends with. So I don't know how this is going to work. Are we just going to cut off?
They're excellent fellows in their own right.
Yeah, our buddies over American Slacker Podcast. Here's a word from them, and check out their shit. Friends of ours, great dudes, and check out their work.
Hey, this is Matt.
And Jesse.
We host American Slacker Podcast, your weekly rundown for weird news, entertainment suggestions, and unique games.
Every other week, we bring on guests from all walks of life, like comedian Mark Forward of Letterkenny.
Yeah, we just call it tuna up here. We're pretty clear that it's a fish.
And NYC stand-up powerhouse Ian Fidance.
I want to fucking punch you in the fucking face with positivity and fun, motherfucker.
Actor Brandon Crane of Stephen King's It.
There's a lot of the work that I did, like Wonder Years to It, they were all very, period 50s, 60s, and, chucks were all the rage.
And Art the Clown from Terrifier, David Howard Thornton.
They also had to make a mold of my face while I was there, so that was kind of claustrophobic in itself.
Musician Dan Simons of Just Surrender.
First time ever going out on tour, you remember every stop.
And Nick Thompson of Hit the Lights.
All the stuff that I think that people go through life, and it's just my outlet for that.
Watch the video version of American Slacker on our YouTube channel and listen to our show on your favorite podcast app.
New episodes every Wednesday. Visit our website, aspodcast.com, for everything American Slacker.
That's it.
There you go.
And we're back. That was American Slackers. We have had collaborations with them in the past. Actually met them at a podcast convention. Anyway, so Chris.
Jesse and Matt, man.
Yep, Jesse and Matt. Scott. would you like to talk about the antagonist of this film?
I would. I believe it is the titular Michael Myers, or not titular, I suppose, but the enemy who's always been part of Halloween. And like, so we somewhat pre-discussed this a bit as Chris, if you're watching this, like, he's just like attacking the camera. But like, I mean, he is what he's always been, but it's possible now that having just said what we said about themes, he's still effective in terms of being like, an unrelenting monster, pretty much. He's, killing this and everyone left and right, like more or less. And actually, to go back to the differences between the two versions, apparently there are like more than double the kills and more in a more gruesome manner in the theatrical cut. Now it's more subdued in the producer's cut, which I think works, and this might somewhat flow into style that it's more in line with how it was established originally, at least let's say in the first one, and then a bit in 2 as well. So all of that to say, I'm probably going to give it a 1, even if the plot and the narrative like strips him a bit of agency. It doesn't actually matter because he's still menacing everyone and everyone's terrified of him, and he's effectively murdering people. So like, I just don't know what else to say about it. If you fuck up Michael, if I ever give Michael Myers a 0, then you've really screwed the pooch on a goddamn Halloween movie.
Yeah, we gave him a 0
2 years
last
from
time.
now. 2 years from now, we'll.
All right. Well, I guess we'll circle back to that in 2 years from now, and when we get to that one. But all I'm saying, in 6, he still is generally as effective and as menacing and scary as he's ever has been, and terrorizes the people that he's set out to terrorize, whether or not he's doing it of his own volition or in service of some nebulous, astrological, conspiracy kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't actually matter because he is effectively, like I said, stalking them all and doing his Michael Myers thing throughout. So
I think that the point you made about him being stripped of agency is really important because he becomes the vehicle for the Thorn cult. And as I attempted to give motivation for them, I don't think it was established enough. Thorn cult seems like a strange addition to this entire.
it's a little left turny,
Yeah.
sure.
So I don't know if I was. Yeah, I guess the characters felt antagonized. I didn't feel antagonized. I don't know. I think this is it's better than the fourth and fifth, but it's still not up to where the first, second, or next year's is going to be.
Okay, I got just something quickly to rebut that, or at least add on to it. So even if we take it as the Thorn cult is thus controlling Michael Myers as a pawn, right? Chris, it's the thing from The Dark Knight. The Joker's just a mad dog. I want whoever let him off the leash. Like, they're both antagonists, right? So that's my final push for a 1 on this point.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if you look at it as though the cult is the main antagonist, that is selling Michael Myers short, because even though he's at their beck and call, he is still the one who is the villain of the movie, right? It's not like he's
no cult members kill
it never feels like he's
not true.
All right, that's
not true.
What's that? No cult member what?
I said no cult members kill anybody, but you're right. Ian said not true. Win as the man in black with the hat,
they kill Jamie.
Yeah, you're right.
In her bed, which in the theatrical cut she gets thrown into a thresher by Michael. So
nobody was satisfied with either of these deaths for Jamie.
Yeah, I mean, she gets really screwed over in this movie, but yeah, like I see, even if Dr. Wynn is controlling Michael, I see Michael as the main villain of this movie, and I'm gonna give him a 1. I think he is strong, and like he never feels like the dragon of the main bad guy, like, right? He always feels like, to me, he always feels like
the Joker let loose, and the Joker's gonna do what he does. Michael Myers is gonna do what he's gonna do.
The same way the Joker's the villain of that movie, like, although nobody's pulling the Joker's strings in that,
Right, I'm just saying it's not a 1-to-1, but I'm saying it's something that crossed my mind, and I thought it was a decent enough analogy. Like, yeah, even taking into account your point about how his agency is somewhat removed, but he's still doing his Michael Myers thing as he always has done. So
yeah, So it's good enough for me for a 1, I think, unless Chris has a really compelling reason for me to not give it a 1.
Given the fact that Michael has been stripped of agency, I mean, because I mean, before you framed it in those words, Steve-O, which was an excellent way to do it. I actually felt bad for Michael. I felt sympathy for him, even though he was killing people. Once you put it, the fault is in our stars. I was born under a bad sign. Yeah. And you have this cult trying to essentially replace him with baby Jamie's baby. You know, all
no, they're trying to replace him with random Strode.
With Danny, little Danny.
Danny, that's right.
Danny Strode.
But isn't like Danny and then baby.
No, the baby has to get killed so that Danny can take Michael Myers' power.
Exactly. Oh shit, that's right.
It's all circuitous conspiracy.
But
all right.
But to me, that is. I'm going to give them points because he was really trying to do his best to tie all this crap together. But by the same token, I don't feel the cult. I felt the cult needed some more simmering on the back burner. I don't feel that. I don't feel that Michael was. You know, I kind of felt bad for him in a way. I felt that he was. You know, it's kind of like you said. He's going to do what he's going to do, but not even the way the Joker was. I mean, it would be kind of like blaming a rattlesnake for biting you when all it was doing was trying to protect itself or whatever. Again, maybe that's a bad analogy because, you know, Michael in this was a predator.
I understand.
But I'm going to give it a 0 because I feel that the antagonist was the cult. And I don't feel like the cult was really, to me at least, fleshed out.
I am all in on Michael starting a new life though at the end of this, putting on his glasses and mustache and walking out into the world.
All right, I'll only rebut just the last thing you said there, Chris, is that if Michael is the cult's weapon, then I think it's effective, and that's why I'm giving it a 1 overall. That's all. If that changes you, if not, I get it. I completely understand.
I'm going to make a metaphor here. It's like a James Bond film where the muscle is interesting, but the main villain isn't.
Lame. Yeah.
And that's how I am viewing it. That Michael was interesting in all the parts until he became the jaws of.
So does that mean you're giving it a 0?
I'm giving it a 0.
Okay. All right. Interesting. Good split.
All right, Mr. Mosi. Steven. I'm going to name you Steven. I think that fits you.
Thank you.
You like that name? You like that name, Steven?
That's good. It's
Hello,
same as Paul Rudd's middle name, so I'm good with it.
Would you like to talk about the protagonist of this?
Yeah. So I guess it's Kara Strode.
I would agree.
And
maybe
she's fine. That's pretty much it. Like I don't.
Is that your assessment?
Yeah. Like I don't super love any protagonist since you know, the first movie of Halloween. So like she's fine. I might not give her a 1. I'm bordering towards a 0 right now, but I could go either way. I don't have much to say about her, which is the main reason I'm like bordering on a 0, but you guys might provide some good insight into why I might give this a 1. So take it away.
I will try. So I'm leaning towards a 1, and for a couple of reasons that I thought she was well characterized and well acted. So you get her family life, you understand where she's coming from, what she's doing, like where her place in life is, right? She has a child, like she has Danny, and like and her father is a abusive dick asshole, and they're living in the Michael Myers house. They're Strodes, they're a branch of the Strodes. So I think that enough was sprinkled throughout. And she also made smart decisions. Maybe this is for other questions, but once enough information was revealed to her, and she met Paul Rudd, and I almost was gonna maybe count Paul Rudd also as like a possible like secondary protag. Like he can almost like fall either here or secondary, right? But I agree that it's Kara first and foremost, regardless either way. And I think like she was given enough time, enough space to breathe, and her actress did a pretty damn good job of portraying like her situation and the decisions and what happened and what unfolded once enough information was revealed. So all that to say, those are the reasons why I think I'm leaning towards, even if it's a softer one, I still think it's a 1 on protagonist front. So there you go. Take it away.
Go on, Ian.
She's a final girl with a little bit standard final girl. She even has the final girl run where she finds all the dead bodies, but with a few more characteristics I think elevate her into more than kind of that one-dimensional thing. The fact that she's a caring mother, the fact that she doesn't make any mistakes, and all of the poor choices she has in this horror movie are in service of rescuing her son.
Forced by her son. Yeah, forced by her son. Yeah.
So she even arms herself at a certain point. I think that
she tells everyone to get out of the fucking house and like tries to do that herself.
So we also reviewed Nightmare on Elm Street, and I think that Nancy in there has a similar as this is a much more convoluted story. There's a lot more moving parts than Nightmare on Elm Street. So yeah, she got less screen time, but I think the development of her character was on par with some of not the best of, but a satisfying final girl. So I'm probably gonna give her a 1 for that.
I am counting her and Paul Rudd as co-protagonists because, to be honest with you, that to me is the only way the film makes sense. Because I agree with everything you said, Ian, but I feel like it's like a key in a lock. I mean, I feel like neither one of them has all the ingredients to be a protagonist, but put them together and they do.
And
so
Chris, that's almost how I was going to cut it up too. So yeah, go
you know,
on.
I like that idea. So
because if you think about it, she does all the right things, but it's Paul Rudd that actually
He also provides like a nice push as well.
Yeah, but without his information, she would not have been able to. They really needed each other. I mean, they really needed each other. She validated him, and he helped show her the way. So I'm definitely counting him as co-protagonist because on their own, I can't give either one of them a 1, but together I can give them a strong 1.
Yeah.
The only reason I wouldn't count them both as protagonists is we don't know much of his story. Like, she gets developed a lot more as a character than he does throughout this. He's like the weird guy who's into runes, and like he has depth as a character, but not a ton of development.
But he's also a returning character.
Yeah, he's the kid who was essentially like supposed to be the babysit kid from the original. So like it makes sense that he's sort of weird and like isolated, removed, and like researching runes and whatever the fuck else he's researching. Yeah, Chris, I think you made a really good point, and I think I'm going to count them both as well and give them a 1.
And to be quite honest with you, they really could have overplayed his role. They really could have made him more of the stereotypical tinfoil wearing, but he wasn't. He was completely rational. I mean,
he was grounded.
It was, I mean, so the whole thing with the fact that the premise was kind of silly was not his fault. He did what he needed to do, and she did what she needed to do, and they did it effectively. So,
I agree. Does that change you at all, Steve-O?
Weigh
you in any sense?
Yeah, I will agree to put him as a protagonist. So that'll be a 1 for protagonist for me.
All right, cool. Well, on to me with supporting characters. This is getting a 1 because Loomis. If anything, this movie needed more Loomis.
Donald
Pleasance is amazing. This is not his last film, but it's certainly he died even before reshoots, Weinstein reshoots of this, and he embodies this amazing character, Dr. Loomis, and he will be missed going forward in the series. He was the best part of 4 and 5, and he's probably the best part of this one. His best lines in this.
Yeah, one of them. Yeah.
On that, they have 2 really good sleazy characters in this. Biff from Back to the Future plays the father in this. Well, I don't know if it's that actual actor, but it's he's very similar character. And the radio show host.
Yeah, Barry, I think.
were you were happy they died. But I gotta say, when the mother died, I actually felt really bad for her. They had developed her character as this suffering housewife,
much more than a throwaway.
and I actually like right when you knew she was going to die, I turned to Scott. We were watching it today. I'm like, I don't want her to die. I would feel really bad if she lost life because she doesn't deserve this. And that is a rare feeling for me to have in a horror movie, of being like actually very sympathetic with the character.
The reason I'm jumping in is because I want to continue that, because she was the character I was going to focus on. She really brought a lot. She did ground the family. She brought in a lot of heart, and I'm going to give props to Kim Darby. I think she's a very good actress. I think the word character actor is always misconstrued, because the first film I ever saw her in was a film that scared the shit out of me.
Everyone's a character actor, right?
Yeah, seriously, exactly. But I saw her in the original Don't Be Afraid of the Dark, which as a kid scared me, and to this day there's things that freak me out about that film. And she's also in The Mother. She's also the mother in Better Off Dead.
That's right. Holy fuck, thank you.
But to reference Todd in the Shadows regarding her career, did she deserve better? Yes, absolutely. Kim Darby is just a gem, no matter what role she plays. And I don't think it would have been the same. The mother would have been the same if she was played by any lesser of an actor. So
she brought a lot of pathos to the role.
Absolutely. And I think she brought out more of it than an actor brings to life whatever's in the script. And she did a phenomenal job, and always props to Pleasance as well. So I'm giving this a very strong one.
I mean, Dr. Sam motherfucking Loomis, and rest in peace, respectfully, Donald Pleasance. But right, like, it's just such a joy to see him on screen, especially for this such an iconic character in this franchise. And I had a big giant grin on my face every time he showed up to deliver his lines in the best fucking way, and like doing his best. And it made sense. Like, he just sells the ridiculous shit like on paper that the script is trying to convey to you. And yeah, you're right, Chris. Like, Kim Darby, fucking A. Like, everything you said for sure. Like, yeah, in any other, she would have been cannon fodder, and even kind of is in this film. But the way she portrays it, like, for the limited time that she's allowed to give that character life, she gives it a lot of life. And yeah, so, and everyone else is like, fine. Like, so I was gonna, like we said, now that we've officially counted Paul Rudd, whatever his character's name, I don't remember, Tommy, as protagonist. So everyone else, like, the town fills out, like Kara's brother, Captain 90s, like, so 1995 it fucking hurts, and his girlfriend, like, and all that, like, they're like essentially cannon fodder too, right?
Stock power characters.
Yeah, exactly. But like, at least they still added enough of a little dimension to dynamic and so forth. So yeah, but for the most part, of course, it's Donald and it's Kim, and I'm giving them a lot of credit, and it's going to be a 1.
So 1995, that hurts. I'm laughing about that for the next
one. I know. I said that just for you, but yeah.
Yeah, it's a 1. You guys basically named the entire cast list. So yeah, but it's a 1 for me. It's good. Donald Pleasance, obviously awesome. Tim Strode's Beavis and Butthead reference. So much fun. And yeah, it'll be 1. That's it.
All right, Chris, on to you with dialogue.
This is really funny because as written, the dialogue's pretty awful. However, with regard, everybody not everybody, because Pleasance's friend, who ended up being the leader of the cult, was just
actually, we'll count him as a secondary too. Dr. Whitwell,
he's an antagonist.
Yeah. Sure.
But I think he held his chops with Donald Pleasance. Yeah. He actually had the same kind of
I believe they were colleagues.
Yes.
Yeah, I did until he became the cult leader. I mean, at the beginning, I really liked their conversation, but the thing is, the performances elevated the dialogue. I mean, the intro to our themes, I have the most ridiculous line of dialogue in this where Yeah, where he's just, where Paul Rudd says, "Little Ernest, I think Michael's being controlled by an evil rune."
Under the influence of the
Under the influence of an evil room. And I'm like, this dialogue is not good. But the banal dialogue is fine. But the fact, I don't know how to judge this, but I really wanted to, the point I wanted to bring up was, it is delivered with such earnesty. I believe it. I mean, and again, props to Kim Darby. The stuff she was dealing with, the stuff she talked about, the family stuff, she brought a lot of gravitas to banal dialogue, just run-of-the-mill stuff. But the shit that was slung here that was delivered with the utmost sincerity. I mean, like, I put that in there because you have to, if you do nothing else, go online and look for the scene with Loomis and Paul and Tommy Doyle, because it is fantastic. There is not, no, the reason I'm saying is there's not a hint of irony in this. They are not, like, the last two films were just fucking awful. It's just awful. But, and as much as I like Halloween 3, it's a bad movie. But I believed what these people were telling me. So it's kind of hard because as written, no, but as performed, I might be giving this a 1.
You're absolutely right. It's the harshest line in, like, this question was the one that I was like debating the most because of that. Seriously, Chris, because of that very fact. Like, everyone is buying so fucking hard into the stuff, which is absurd on the surface, but they're not, like, they're just being so earnest about it that, like, you almost, like, it sells you to a really far degree. Like, you go along with it a long way. But I'm really struggling with it too, because yeah, I'm in the same boat. It's, I think Michael's on the influence of a evil rune. Like, it's delivered so straightforwardly that, like, yeah, that's what's fucking happening, and, like, we know that as an audience, right? So, like, it's super harsh, and I'm not sure. Like, my gut wants me to say 0 here because of the actual.
But your heart says 1.
Yeah, like, and
that's exactly what I was gonna say.
Performances want me to say 1 because they sell it so motherfucking hard, and they're trying their damnedest to make it work. And for a lot of it, it actually does. And actually, I've got one more possible example. It's sort of like a random thing when so Barry Sims, actually, we'll mention, like, one of you mentioned him for secondary. I kind of like, the shock jock radio guy's like, oh, I had it feel, fuck Michael Myers, and then of course he gets killed, right? So then, like, when his body's dripping blood, and a little girl is singing, "It's raining red, mommy, it's raining red," like, it's fucking creepy, like, and that actually works. Like, that's more memorable than anything I can think of from 4 or 5. So, like, like, that single thing might push it over the edge, maybe. So what do you guys think?
Oh, Steve-O, talk me down from a 1 because they made a really good argument.
No, I'm absolutely giving this a 0. Like, you're right. The actors do their best to make this dialogue, anything that's not just, like, complete nonsense. But and a lot of it does really try, but the dialogue is absolutely horrible in most of this movie. There's I forget what the scene is. Like, there's a scene where they're talking about Tommy, like Kara's brother and girlfriend are talking about Tommy. He's like, man, on a scale of 1 to 10 on the creep factor, this guy's a 13. It's like, Jesus Christ, this is so fucking bad. And for the most of the movie, it's like just little microcosms of that. Like, yeah, it's fucking awful dialogue. Granted, they are being very earnest with it, and they're trying to make it as good as they can, but I'm sorry, you have to work with what's on the page, and what's on the page is really bad. So
I gave points for supporting and protagonist, and
same, also.
That is why I would even consider giving it a 1. But you're right, Steve-O. This is just, it's so bad. But the acting is what sells it. But I gave the points in the acting, so I'm giving it a 0.
I think I will also at the end of the day, like as much as the impassioned speech I just made, like you're right, like we have to look at it of what is being said, regardless of how well it's being said and how earnest it is. The actual language being used is fucking absurd for the most part. So yeah, I'm gonna give it a soft 0, but 0 at the end of the day.
Chris, you still won?
I'm giving it a 1. Fuck
Yeah,
it. I'm
okay.
giving it a 1.
No,
I
I
am
mean,
very fucking proud
I get it,
to give
man,
this
like-
dialogue a 1. God damn it.
Almost was gonna put-
Any doubt, I'll tell you what. Here's what I'm
Okay,
going to do
buddy.
it. Any doubt that you and Scott have, I'll absorb. I mean, any props, I'll take the hit for the
Love
props.
it. Love it.
It
I'm
was
giving,
super
I'm,
close.
I'm giving
Chris's
a 1
rant
for
brought to you by the writer of Halloween 6.
It was super close, but yeah, like trying to like dial it back, like being a little bit more critically objective. That's how I stand.
No.
No.
Great. All right, Scott, on the style.
So, I'm looking at a 1 at the outset, and because I think a few of us at least discussed this precast, and I'll flesh out here. For the most part, it's shot fine and has like a nice sort of. It almost looks like the washed out feel, like tone that the original 1 and 2 had, right? Like little like subdued there, in terms of the lighting and stuff. But what really sets it apart, I think, or really stands out, is the fact that they do the homages, especially the Michael Myers shots, like, in the background, in a mirror, behind the curtain, or whatever, right? That is very much in keeping with the nature of how they set him up and how they shot him as the stalker monster originally. So I think that went a long way to keeping it like to selling me on a 1, and again keeping within the original 1. Now apparently the theatrical cut is like super gorily, over the top, like the kills are much more like ridiculous, blood spurting, this and that. But it isn't the case. Yeah, it isn't the case with the producer's cut. So that's fine. Like, yeah, like there's some like intense, like harsh stuff, but it's very quickly there. So yeah, you still get like the shock, like hardcore effect of it, but it's not drawn out for no reason, right? And yeah, and also again, I guess the split, since it's on me, I'll take this one too. They thankfully, in the director's producer's cut, kept the original theme and variations thereof versus playing like apparently generic rock grunge music, which the theatrical cut did, which sounds god awful and horrible. Who the fuck would ever do that? Oh wait, Weinstein and Co did it, so it makes sense for them to make a horrible decision and be an asshole about it. But since again the cut that we watched did what I just said, that I think goes a long way for me to giving it at least enough credit, like solid, decent 1 because of all that, and anything else on top of that is sort of like a bonus, but that's how I stand.
If I may jump in, there's got James Agenese who runs the Kill Count. I think it's Dead Meat is the channel, but he did a cut comparison between the theatrical cut and this. Not only are they add scenes and delete scenes, but the color and change the soundtrack, but the coloring's different too.
Yeah,
and
sepia tone and stuff.
In themes, I mentioned this is a love letter to the Halloween franchise, and the points I couldn't give that to that in themes, I have to give into style, because they tried to capture everything throughout the history, to even the first Halloween. Not only did they bring back Tommy Doyle, but they had references to the original Halloween. This is it's trying to capture what made Halloween great, and I think that even if it failed on certain levels because of the burden of what I had to carry, I think it was successful for the most part. So I'm going to give it a strong 1 for that. But if you're interested in actually seeing how lighting and things can change, and cuts can change,
dramatically,
the actual comparisons from one to the other is fascinating to see. And perhaps I would have doubted it until I saw how poorly the editing job was done in the theatrical version. So I'm giving it a strong 1.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Sorry.
Speaking of the soundtrack, Alan Howarth. I'm assuming because I saw 2 composers on IMDb, but in the producer's cut, Alan Howarth was listed, and Alan Howarth is somebody John Carpenter always collaborated with.
Right.
So they did go back to the well with regard to the soundtrack of this film. The look of it, Scott would say, is so 1995 it hurts. But there were moments like the way, unfortunately, Kim Darby was killed, doing the wash was really well shot. I agree with you 100%, Ian. any meta points I wanted to give in themes, I'm giving here. So this is definitely giving a very strong one for me.
Right on.
Yeah, I agree. It's Halloween with the cult filter on. Like it just does a really good job making it look and feel like a Halloween movie. And then adding a little something too, you know, with all those cult scenes, they did a pretty good job of like, you know, like the first scene in the movie where she's like giving birth, she's on like a gurney with like the hospital gown on, and they're bringing through this corridor with like fucking torches. I was like, where the fuck is she? But like it worked out pretty well, like in terms of the way that they like lit those scenes and shot those scenes. And you know, you kind of come back to that feel later on in the movie, so they do a good job of like bookending with that. Obviously Carpenter's music is great, and yeah, I just think that this film, Joe Chappelle, who directed this film, did a good job of like kind of crafting like you said, a love letter to the Halloween franchise in general, and but also made it kind of its own thing. So good job. One there for style.
All right, Steven, keep talking about, would you recommend Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers?
If you're gonna watch any 3 Halloween movies, this should be one of them. Of the first 6, any 3 of the first 6 Halloween movies, this should be one of them. Obviously the first Halloween is the best one, but I think this is up there in terms of the ones that we've watched. 4 and 5 were just awful. 2 was okay at best, and 3 is nonsense that some people really love. Maybe if you you know, like but I, you know, it's not like bad nonsense. It just it wasn't my cup of tea per se. But anyway, this one I would recommend it. Check it out. It's worth a watch, especially like around Halloween time in October, and when you're, you know, just wanting a little scary movie that's kind of fun and messes around with the tropes. You got this one.
I mean, so this episode will literally be dropping on Halloween. So if you're listening to it, it is Halloween, or at least the first time. So I'll leave something for E. But yes, I'm going to officially recommend it. Of course, it is miles better than 4 and 5. And yeah, it's just entertainingly watchable, and without being boring or grating about it. Like they did a good job. And as we already mentioned, just to recap, that they had so much baggage behind them to try to, like, you know, tie it all together, and it does a good enough job with that, with the performances, etc., and everything else we said. All of that adds up to a decently one recommend for me.
I've never seen the theatrical cut, but I definitely recommend, unironically, the producer's cut. I mean, it is far from a perfect film, and there is some ridiculous stuff that goes on in here. But there's a lot of love, and the people who made this film, the actors, everybody took it seriously. There's no winking at the camera. I mean, because the last 2 were just, I mean, the acting was horrible. I mean, everything was wrong. And here's something that the producer's cut, where this was a passion project, and you could tell that everybody, nobody winked at the camera. Everybody took it seriously. And
that worked out well for the most part.
And there's some really genuinely effective scenes in this. And there's a lot of effective performances in this. But honestly, at the end of the day, producer's cut. I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. I really enjoyed watching this movie. So I have to give it a 1.
I wonder what it would be like watching the first Halloween for the first time, and then immediately watching the 6th Halloween. And like, what did I miss?
What the hell happened?
Nothing much, actually.
not too much, to be honest with you.
When did the cult come in? Oh, the end of the last movie. But I haven't seen this in a while, and yeah, it's a fun time. So yeah, I'm giving it a recommendation. Like, one of my top Halloween films, oddly enough.
I mean, in a lot of ways, it makes more sense than 2, because at least you had people here. Because in 2, you had an entire hospital full with a ward full of babies, a doctor, 2 nurses, 2 paramedics, Laurie Strode, Sam Loomis, and Michael Myers. I mean, that is the most ridiculous thing. So at least this thing, you actually had, you know, I mean, they actually did use the fact that it was Halloween, as they did in I think in 2018, effectively in that, and to the credit 1 and 2 is the fact that this was Halloween. It is easy to get somebody, you know, for this bullshit to happen, because, you know, they're celebrating Halloween for the first time in however long. So
Right on.
All right, well, I'll give out the
there?
scores. We gave this a total of 6.75. All of you gave it a 7. I gave it a 6. We
What was the difference then?
Well, actually, we kind of were split on certain things.
Okay.
We all agreed that the themes were kind of lacking because this was a course correction movie, but we disagreed upon the effectiveness of the antagonist, whether we liked what Michael Myers did or disliked the cult aspect. And then we've also Chris loved the dialogue of this, and the rest of us said,
At the end of the day,
yeah. So
I absorbed everybody's goodwill for the dialogue, and that
nice sacrifice, buddy. So what'd you say, 6.75?
Yeah, so it's much better than the last one. Whole 5 points.
5 times better.
Yeah, that's for sure.
But yeah. So unless anyone has anything else to say, I'm Jonathan E. Manzer. I think a good double feature would be this and Hot Fuzz, because of
the cult thing. Sure.
Here with Scott Thurler.
And I'm going to be having the Mark of Thorn myself. Happy Halloween and cheers.
Stephen Ramosi.
I'm off to sharpen my knife.
And Christopher Morgan.
Happy Halloween.
Playing with his toys. Have a good Halloween, everyone.
Right on. Peace.
Editing and engineering by Christopher Morgan. Music by Christopher Morgan. Check us out on YouTube and iTunes for the shows, and on Facebook and Twitter for updates.